here's my unboxing of the product. I couldn't be less interested in watching you unbox a product. I think that product boxing is the biggest waste of money in the world. Why do I want a sexy box? I want a sexy part. Like, the box is going in the trash regardless.
100%.
I will say that Sen does have some great wrapping, but that's it.
Welcome to the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast, where we dive into the high-octane world of market-leading shop owners, shop employees, and automotive enthusiasts from the aftermarket, restoration, performance, and racing industries. So strap in as we take you on an awesome journey with our guests as they share their real-life stories, lessons learned, business advice, and unfiltered insights to help you beat the school of hard knocks. Gearheads and Gasoline, fueling your success.
I'm Barry Alt with Motorhead Digital, and my co-host is the amazing Annette Bauer from Annette Bauer Creative. We're super excited to welcome Kyle Kuhnhausen, the owner of Kuhnhausen Metal Concepts, to the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast. Welcome, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle. Welcome.
How's it going? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So do me a favor and pronounce your last name for me.
Kuhnhausen.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I was like, it's a very long last name. It sounds like it's German.
Whatever you say is going to work for me.
Is that German, or is it what?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering about that. Always wondered about that.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, thank you for coming on the podcast. I am a huge fan of yours. I've been following your page for a very long time, and I am always enamored by the work that you do. So we're excited to have you on and kind of pick your brain a bit about how you built your brand and really just kind of how you've perfected your craft. So you've done such an amazing job with that. But as usual, we always kick off our podcast with a little bit of a twist. And that is, we have a single question for you that's a bit unusual. And that is, what is your favorite drink?
Depends what time of day it is. At some point I switched from black coffee to an IPA, and those are my two go-tos.
Nice.
I've got a particular favorite, Boneyard Brewing RPM IPA. That's my number one.
Is that local to you?
Yeah, they're in Bend, Oregon, so just 2 hours away.
Yeah, that was my question too. Is that close to you? Because it sounds like it's definitely a West Coast thing.
We're pretty lucky here in Oregon. We got lots of good breweries.
That is true. And I will say, you guys have some absolutely incredible scenery. I covered the Redwood Rally last year and got to do some traveling up the Pacific Northwest. And it was just like, man, it is just so beautiful up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got lots of trees.
Mm-hmm.
and elevation. It's and when I go to other places, it's weird to look and not see mountains. It's
right. It's very cool.
Yeah, we've never been up that way. My wife wants to go to Northern California, Redwoods and all that, up in that area at some point. Up in that's neck of the woods, I think. Maybe a little farther north. Farther north? Yeah, okay. Cool.
Yeah, like Oregon's about 4 hours from me, so not far.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Kyle, you've been around cars all your life, right? What got you into the passion of building cars and doing that? And one thing I do want to say this, it always intrigued me that what you do, you don't even have a lift.
No, and that's changed. I have a lift. It's not set up yet now. Now I need a building tall enough to put a lift into, and I really got it going on. But
cool.
I basically was born into the industry. My dad ran a mechanical and auto body shop with his business partner since I was born. So I grew up, and they did a lot of drag racing, always doing hot rod stuff on the side. They had real jobs. And then I kind of flip-flopped that later on down the road and turned hot rodding into the real job. But yeah, so I grew up going to the racetrack, following dad around the home shop, and then also cutting my teeth at his business from a pretty early age. And then obviously I drifted into hot rods. It doesn't take a whole lot once you have that in your blood and you kind of see what's going on in the hot rod industry to get really hooked into that. So I didn't start out initially in hot rods. I started out with imports because about the time I was 12, the Fast and the Furious came out, and that's a pretty impressionable age. And that was a pretty, awesome show as a kid. And you just think, man, I want to be Brian O'Connor. How cool is this guy? And so I had a Honda Prelude. I did all the stuff to it. I did my first roll bar, by hand with the Harbor Freight bender in the driveway. We did body work, painted it. I did all my first primer blocking and learning what not to do, what to do. And I would work. I was a pretty diligent worker as a kid, and I always have been because my dad knew how to get me motivated, and that was car parts. So I learned real early, if you want car parts, you work. And then that just translates into bigger and better hobbies and property and stuff at a later age in life. But you just got to work hard and you can get what you want. And so I learned that about age 12, and then I never stopped. So I was there every second I could be at work. I was on the clock working and sweeping floors and doing my best job at it. And I was the boss's son, so I obviously had the stigma to break, which I did pretty early on. Because my dad kind of, you got to work your ass off. And at work, I always, I learned at a young age too, that work's work, home's home. And we're not always the same at both. So you might get your ass chewed a little bit at work if you're not going hard. So it was great. I learned a lot of good stuff growing up the way I did. And then obviously body work and stuff is a much more financially satisfying career for sure. If you're flat rate tech and you're good at what you do. Right. It's also a drive your head into the wall type of job, because all you're doing is fixing broken cars and people that didn't want to wreck their cars in the first place. And then you find out real quick that people are the most picky thing in people's lives is their car. It's not their house, it's their car. So if one little thing isn't like they remembered it, then you got to eat it or be pissed off anyways, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. So yeah, that was a great career though. I mean, that if I didn't start doing that, if I didn't start out in collision with a real job, making real job money, I wouldn't have had the platform to actually be able to go off on my own. I would have tried it and failed.
That you learned a lot that you apply there, right? And it's interesting in that we have a trend here. Jesse Vaughn had the same experience in the body shop side, dealing with the customer and on their worst day sometimes, right? And it's interesting having to deal with that, right?
I think that's a pretty common segue, right? Like, I think that, like our parents as a whole really kind of instill in us, like, hey, you have to have a job that pays the bills and takes care of your family and does all the right things. So that's, just naturally what we seek is, okay, so how can I, do that? What do I do to take care of those things? And then as we grow, we start like branching out into like, okay, I want to do something different. I want to, kind of follow that creative niche or whatever it is. And in your case, Kyle, like, I love that you come from like the racing side. Like that's my jam. Like that's where I'm at all the time. So, you definitely learn a different work ethic, a different drive, and a different interest in automotive, not taking anything away from like the hot rod side or restoration or whatever, because that all is still very relevant. But it also has a different drive to it, right? So I love that you have that experience and passion, and where you kind of built that from.
Yeah. It's when the whole thing is you got to work hard Monday through Friday to go racing on Saturday, and I saw that in my dad and his business partner, and that instilled in me. Now I'm, a non-recovering workaholic since age 12. So it drives my wife crazy sometimes.
Same. So I also want to point out, because it really stood out to me that you said this, I haven't heard too many other people, like just in my everyday life or as our guests, really acknowledge something that you brought up, which I think is very important, right? Which is that the person that you are in the shop or the person that you are at the track or whatnot is not always the same person that is at home. And I love that your dad really kind of helped you understand that, like, yeah, I'm going to be hard on you at work because we have responsibilities there. We have people to take care of, but it doesn't change who I am to you when we get home and that I love you and all those other things, right? Like, I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, that there is division in those two. It doesn't mean that you're two-faced and you're not the same person. It just means that you understand how to disconnect a little bit where it's necessary.
Yeah. It's not to say that it didn't ever spill over occasionally.
Oh, sure.
But, you know, it wasn't like a Orange County chopper situation or anything like that. It wasn't dramatic. It's just, you know, I can't treat you any different than any of my other employees. I'm the boss. I gotta, you know, there's a certain standard to set. And so, and, you know, I was a workaholic, but I was also a kid who probably had undiagnosed ADHD. So if I, you know, I might be going down a rabbit hole or something over here. And you know, I was buddies with, you know, all my worker friends were my buddies too. But you know, I'm a 12 to 16-year-old kid, and they're, you know, in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And so I probably heard and learned a lot of stuff I didn't really necessarily need to know at that age. But all the same, it was fun. And I mean, it was a family business, and my dad and John, they did it really nice and they were good to their people. So it's all the same employees still. I mean, they sold very successfully. My dad retired. They sold their business 2 years ago now.
Nice.
Still mostly the same people there. Just they had good people and they were good to their people. You know, nowadays, who knows? It was bought by, you know how it goes. It was bought by a much bigger chain of shops. So you lose a lot of that touch, but everybody, I'm sure, still remembers how good they were as bosses and provided for their guys. So
That's awesome.
Redline Oil, formulated to win, proven by me.
Redline Oil, formulated to win.
Formulated to win.
Formulated to win, proven by me.
Formulated to win, proven by me.
Proven by me.
Proven by me.
Redline Oil, formulated to win, proven by me.
Do you plan, you talk about that, having team members and things like that, employees that you take care of and that you nurture and that they're there with you a long time. You're a one-man shop right now, right? And do you have, I believe
I'm a 1.5 man.
1.5. Your dad helps you in the shop, right?
Yeah, he retired, and now he plays shop with me all day. Like say, it's a workaholic family, so I got to keep him lined out and busy because he just needs a direction to be doing something. It doesn't really matter what, something. And usually that's body work on my hot rods for me. So
it's okay. Have you found that dynamic has shifted now? Like when you were younger and he was like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that now you're like, Dad, you need to do this, you need to do that.
It's 100%, and I love it because it's somewhat payback.
The roles have changed, huh? Right.
I pay him even worse than he started me off on, though. So
do you plan on growing more? Do you plan on growing more and adding actual employees, or do you plan on sticking where you're at? Are you happy with that?
I go back and forth on that all the time. So just being involved in an automotive business, not in the same segment, but in the business side of things, I got to see how that works out both ways. And adding employees is great, but I don't want, you don't want to add, sometimes adding more isn't the answer, because then you kind of lose. It just adds a lot more clerical work and adds a lot more insurance and adds a lot more,
complication.
Work. Basically, to run a hot rod shop right and make money like a real business, like a collision shop, you gotta do cookie cutter stuff. You gotta do basic hot rod stuff. You gotta bring in cash flow. which means more cars, which means less of my hands on it. And then pretty soon I'll turn into a desk jockey like any good business owner doing, keeping all these talented people lined out. I don't think that's what I want to do. Right. I take a lot of pride in if a car comes to Kuhnhausen Metal Concepts, Kyle Kuhnhausen's hands are the ones who are on that car. That's who you're paying that shop rate for. You're not, I'm not having a $40 an hour guy do all this cool fab work for you and bill you out at $140 an hour. Yeah, it's not happening. I'm doing it every hour I'm on that car. When you call, I pick up the phone. So it's kind of a unique thing I've got where the customer only deals with me. I only do the work. And then so it's just I don't want to lose what got me where I'm at. So I don't think I really want to add a whole lot. I have one guy who comes over on Fridays from another hot rod shop in town. He started out just wanting to, hey, I see what you're doing. I want to come learn stuff. And he's been diligent. At first I was like, okay, guy. Well, okay, I'm a nice guy. Come on over. Sure. And then it kind of turned into, hey, you're a cool guy. I like you. And then it's like, okay, well, I can let you do a few things here or there. So, down the road, maybe one employee just because I can't do everything. But I also don't want the hassle of what it takes to run a business with employees. And I want to really keep it to no more than 2 cars going at any one time, just because at the level I like to do them, that's all there is. Like
sometimes the growth
you can't
is not
split the focus more
right?
than that.
Yes. Sometimes that growth.
I don't think I want to grow sideways. I want to grow up. And that way, maybe at some point I can just bill a little bit more for what I do instead of trying to add, a bunch of different builds and stuff. Yeah. I think lots of shops try to get in like all the builds and then they kind of just do a okay job on some of them, and then they piss off a few guys, and then maybe they do one right. And, it's just hard to manage all that. Some shops can manage all that, but then again, you're just like a collision business, and if you wanted to really make money, you should have just got in that business. So
right.
I'm not a very business owner.
Right, and I like that you want to keep the element that you're still hands-on in your business. That's what you built your passion off of. And I can appreciate that you recognize where you're at in that process, right? Like that's really important to you. And you understand that from a customer standpoint, that's what they're coming in to pay for, is your work is what attracted them to your business. So handing it off to somebody else in your shop may not necessarily serve what your vision is. So I can understand where you're coming from that.
Yeah. And I hope that younger people getting into the industry hear this and go, you don't have to, just because everybody says growth, make it bigger, add more people is the way to go. It's not always the way to go. So hopefully people will hear that listening to this and go, yeah, I think I'm just going to work on 1 or 2 cars and be an expert at this. And people are hiring me for the expertise that I bring and the quality that I bring. Right.
Yeah. And you got to just think about what's your motivation. And obviously mine's not money. Money makes the world go round. Don't get me wrong. Got to have money. It's weird when you turn your hobby into your profession and that's how you pay your mortgage, because then there are times where you might not love what you're doing because you're burnt out on it, but there's no stopping because this is it. So you chose this life. But at the same time, it's got its benefits. I set my own schedule. I can do, I don't have a boss to report to other than my clients, who I just, I call them the boss man, because like, hey, you're steering the ship. But I'm always the guardrails in the bowling alley. It's like, I'll keep you going straight down the lane here. So you have your ideas, and then, let's collaborate here, and then I'll keep you straightened out on what you really want for your goals here and what's the right choice. I have awesome clients, and I have awesome relationships with my clients too. I think it's not, I try to not make it too stiff and businessy. It's more it's more they turn into friendships and we
Yeah.
build art projects together. Kind of. That's really all it is. So
Well,
so far I haven't had anybody too pissed off at me about it. So.
You can't make everybody happy all the time, right? But you talk about art projects, and one of the things that I had written down was, we met quite a few years ago when I was just reaching out to talk to shop owners and things like that, and I followed you on Instagram forever. And when you talk about art projects and your projects, you come up with such amazing ideas and how you fabricate things. And, I could see you after hours at home. You say you don't take it home, but I could see you going, oh, that's how I'm going to do that. You get out the yellow Lego pad and you draw a sketch of it, right? And send it off to get send cut send. You get those guys are all over.
It never stops. The thought process that doesn't stay at work. That's going at 3 a.m.
You can't turn that off. I know how that works.
It's always going. It's funny. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of like when this is what you do and this is your profession, and it's also what you're the most passionate about.
You don't stop.
It's like you just really kind of live in that pocket of hot rod. So I consume so much. I want to know everything about everything in the industry. I look at the internet, magazine, shows, and get inspired by, I might get inspired by something totally different, something on a fighter jet or something on a boat, or just something I see. And then it's kind of like the gears turn and I just, shape these ideas. And I'm also pretty strict on I don't try to be anybody but myself. I do it the way that I like to do it. And I think that comes through, and you see that, you notice over time that some of the best shops have a particular style. And so I try to not deter from my style. Right. You're going to have extremely detailed thing. You're going to have a car that every single fastener's been hand machined, the head on. You're going to have matching, theme throughout, top, bottom. I feel like my meticulousness is kind of what comes through in my stuff. Because you go to SEMA, and SEMA is kind of the mecca where all this stuff converges because it's the biggest, baddest show. And you look at the stuff that like Mike and Jim Ring are bringing. You can tell Ring Brothers car from half a show booth away, right? And that's kind of what you want to do. That's your calling card, is when people can tell that it's your work with no logo on it. Then you've made it. So still working towards that, but
So how is that creativity? You do a lot of social media, Instagram, you got 166,000 followers. When did that really take off? And how does that affect your business? I know I asked you two things at once, but let's talk about how you got into social media and really got going on that, and then address that other piece.
I got into it because I really liked sharing my work, my passion. Yeah. I don't know, probably a decade ago was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I can put up a picture of this 240Z I'm working on, and these people like it. That's really cool. Right. I like that because I like what I'm doing too. I wouldn't put it up there if I didn't like it. I like what I'm doing. It's just part of the game. Is you look at some of the best athletes in the world and their mindsets in these championship games. They think they know they're the best. It's and not to say that I'm the best or anything. I'm not by a long shot. But I know that what I do resonates with people, and I like that about it. Yeah. And so it's just kind of an outlet to share that and get some of that creativity out. And sometimes it kind of helps pull some of that creativity out by putting together this reel where I can look at my whole process. And it's like, well, how do I even share this process? If I could afford a videographer to do YouTube stuff to just follow me around and actually catch like my whole process, I think it would probably be a gold mine, but I'm not there yet. I do little things all the time, and I'm just like, if I could, I can't, I'm in the moment. I've thought about it. I've tried it. I'm not somebody that can stop, set up 3 cameras. I'm in it. Like I'm building this thing. I can stop and whip a iPhone out and snap a picture, a quick little snippet. But if you could really like bottle up what I do on a day-to-day basis, it would be like nothing out there as far as I'm concerned on YouTube or something like that. But it's just like a sounding board. I love to throw stuff on Instagram and see what comes back. And it didn't really take off until probably SEMA 2018. That's when everything like converged and that was just for a first debut at SEMA, I had kind of an otherworldly experience. I didn't deserve as much as I got there. And then it just kind of snowballed. And I think that people understand that I'm not in it for the wrong reasons. I'm in it for the right reasons. And I stay true to what I do. And I feel like that's why it continues to grow, because I don't do a lot of look at me stuff. I just show my work. I like to just share my work. So I like to not be too big of a part in it. I don't want to be like the face of the page. I want my work to speak for itself. And so if I can continue to do it in that way, where it's not, that terrible influencer word, nobody likes that, but you can tell when people are like that. And it's like, all that's really cringy to me. I don't want that ever. But if I can have some influence and also, benefit a little bit financially, beautiful. I mean, that's a perfect thing. And I will only always sell or endorse products that I truly use myself and enjoy and think will bring value to people's hard-earned money. If I wanted to really make some quick cash, I always have a million, emails in my inbox of people that want to shoot me a quick $1,000-$3,000 to, push their product. But it's a long game. And if I go taking all that stuff, then I'm going to lose all the good things that I built up over the past decade there. So it's hard to refrain, because like, oh man, I could really use that money. I could throw that right. I could get the dry sump system I need for this dart so that I could, push forward on my own project. But, if I do that in 5 years, when a real company I really want to work with is in a spot and wanting to work with me, they might pass on that because they're like, this guy will just kind of take whatever he can get. So it's an interesting thing navigating all that social media partnerships and stuff like that, and doing it in a way that's integral, and also, making a few bucks and doing right by your following. So
did they come to you? Yeah,
I don't know to answer your question, Barry. I don't know that it ever took off or made it yet, because it still needs to grow considerably if I want to do all the things I really want to do with it.
Right. But you're at a juncture right now where you can monetize your Instagram and your channels, right? Which helps you financially, right? So, I mean, you have enough really incredible content that you put out. And although you may not necessarily be strategic about it in the big plan of it, the things that you put out are very impactful. And I 100% guarantee you inspire lots of people, because I know I am not at all a fabricator. I am not a welder in any way, shape, or form, but I can grind. However, every time that I look at your stuff and some of the creations that you have, I'm just inspired myself. I'm in awe, and I love that you're a part of our industry, because it's really important for us to have people like you who know how to do these things, right? Like, I work on a race car and we have chassis work done all the time, and we have different things that break and different things that we need to fix, whether at track or at the shop. And having somebody who has your skill set is not as prevalent as people might think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that you come up with,
and I think, go ahead, Barry.
I said some of the, I've been like Annette, I'm just amazed watching your creativity and some of the things you design and you build. And I was like, it just comes out of your head, and I just don't, it's just really cool. I wish I had that talent, right? Based on your recommendation, I picked up a MIG welder. I've used it once. I still haven't 100% figured it out, right? But seeing that and inspiring others to think outside the box is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, in your defense, Barry, I just bought a new MIG welder too, and I still haven't used it either, because I usually just TIG.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But no, I really appreciate the praise. I couldn't tell you where it comes from. I think it's just being in that pocket. This is what I live this life. I love, like, what I do is me.
Right.
All my work is just my passion in a tangible form for what I'm doing. So,
hey guys, Jason here with AMD, and you're watching the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast. Check this out.
I think the best part about what you do is that you're truly authentic in what you do and who you are, right? And so that naturally attracts people to want to follow you, want to see what you're doing, want to engage with you, want to reach out and say, like, hey, I want to work on a creative build with you or whatever. Because like you said, you are staying true to who you are. And loving what you do is a big part of how we succeed. And sometimes we don't always recognize that success because we're just like, hey, this is just what I do. And this is just what I love. Right. And so it doesn't really feel like that, oh, I've made it moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's there's only two keys to growth on social media. I'm not a social media coach. I didn't work for that number really. But what I have learned is that all you need is good quality content and passion. That's all you need. If you do those two things and you stay the course and I probably have over 2,000 posts in the last decade or so. And, lately I haven't been great because I have a new daughter at home. And I figured that my time where I used to do all this social media stuff is now time with her.
Yeah.
So I've got to figure out a new time schedule to actually get all this content out. But, I've got a huge backlog, which is great. So it's a funny industry. I laugh all the time about it because people look at that number, the 166 or whatever it's at. And they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, that doesn't necessarily pay the mortgage, guys. That doesn't, if I could turn that 5 million views on this 55 Chevy taillight into dollars, we'd really be talking. But, there's some good partnerships. There's things that I really love. I love the brand Sencut, and I loved them before we ever worked together. But that's just a good people, a great service. That's something that truly took my business to a new level and my skill set as well. Without them, I don't think I would have advanced as quickly as I have in the fabrication world. And so I love to spread that like naturally. It's not like paid per spread stuff. It's just seriously, you need to try this. And so when I can align myself with brands like that, where I'm true, like I am an absolute expert at Sencut sending stuff. I do it almost every day. And I would do that whether I worked with them or not. And I would tell people that whether I worked with them or not. And there's brands that I don't work with that I do tell people because it's just what you should be doing. And then maybe someday we can, I like to build up goodwill. I've never worked with a brand whose stuff I didn't buy organically myself first. Right. And nowadays it's my common practice. If I want to work with a brand, I might buy that stuff first. And if it's good, I might even give a little snippet of, hey, this is good stuff. You should check this out. And then, hopefully there's some goodwill there in becoming somewhat of a familiarized with the brand. And if they're in a good spot and I'm in a good spot, maybe we can make something happen. But I'm not doing it just for the partnerships as much as I'm doing it to just kind of market my business. I've found one of my best clients, has come kind of from the Instagram, seeing what I do and, wanting me to be doing that. So it's, you never know who's watching. It's got so much promise. Like I could post this video and you never know when the phone might ring and you create it. So I just try to get as many, branches out there as I can, or roots out there as I can, so that eventually something comes back. And
well, you bring up a really good point. a good buddy of ours and our sponsor, Redline Oil, Mark is a very big advocate for saying like, hey, if you're going to come at me with a request for a sponsorship, you better be using our product first, right? So like, don't just come in and say like, hey, I want you to sponsor me, or like your circumstance, right? Like, hey, I want you to use my product, or I want you to use whatever I do. Well, that's great, but you should be seeking that on your own before you come to me with anything. And being able to advocate for other brands does come back to that authentic, like, hey, I've used it, I can stand behind it, I believe in it, and not being just a yes person, right?
People watching this, younger people that are maybe consider themselves influencers, or trying to work up, show what they do like you do, and get in front of people on social media for your sponsors and partners and things like that. Did they come to you, or did you go to them? And, one of the things for people watching this is how should somebody think about, we talked about using their products. I think that's ultimately the best way. Use their products. I'm not going to say I love this and not use it. That'd be lying, right? How should younger people think, or anybody looking to go and partner with a company think about it?
Yeah, there's some really good questions you bring up, and I've got some good input on them too that I think can be quite helpful, because it's a bit of both. It's so getting going. To preface the whole thing, I think I would say that social media kind of killed brand loyalty, and our industry is built on brand loyalty. Yeah. So if you have a partner, that's your partner. The grass is not greener. It's a relationship, and that's how you create a strong partnership.
Right.
So when I have a partner who's been with me for a while, it doesn't matter what their competitor could throw at me, I won't bite. It's Send Cut Send. I feel like I've done a pretty good job of spreading the gospel of Send Cut Send, and I know that because I've had two of their biggest competitors try to steal me away, say, hey, we'll give you X money and parts and stuff. And I won't even entertain it, because I'm so not interested in turning my back on the people who had my back from the get-go. And it's the same, like Radium Engineering is a fuel products company. They're out of Portland, Oregon, pretty close to me. I think they were my first sponsor, because I took the Datsun I had built to a local show, and one of the upper guys there saw it and was like, hey, we'd love to work with you. And that just happened organically, where they reached out to me, and I didn't even know how to handle it, because it took me a while to kind of ask the big question. And it was like, oh yeah. What we said, we want to work with you. So, a couple of days later, Fuel System showed up before SEMA.
Nice.
So the best ones, generally they've reached out to me. The ones that are lasting. Sometimes I will reach out. Like I haven't done it yet, but I have a company in mind that I wanted to reach out to, because I'm revamping my home shop here so that I can do more, have a better backdrop for content, because where I actually do my business that's dirty work. It's always got dust, and it's just not a space that's sexy. This is my home shop. It can be a little bit more of a sexy shop, but still maybe a little functional, and I can work on my dart here and there on weekends. But I saw this product, and I'm like, hey, that's really cool. And so I bought $400 or $500 worth of their product. And I was like, I like this stuff. So if this is something I want to endorse. And so now I'm trying to approach things more that way, and only go after stuff that I want to endorse. There's stuff that it's like, well, I'm past the point where, unless you give me a couple bucks, you don't get your sticker on the wall, because it's just, I'm there. I did my 10 years of earning that, and I've got people's interest, and I've got a decent followership of people who are loyal to what I'm doing. And I want to finish this damn dart, and that takes money, and that's money that can't be the money that pays the mortgage and buys diapers and all that stuff. So
what you're doing now
only
brings
sponsorship
value.
stuff can do that.
Yeah,
It does. Absolutely. And so I'm trying to figure out how to do the lifestyle I want to do with less strings. And the only way to do that is to not have clients, but have people that you're adding value for a couple bucks. And so I'm trying to experiment with some of that. But again, I only want to do it with people that I really feel like I can be a good ambassador for, a genuine ambassador for. So that's where it gets hard, because sometimes they're not necessarily looking at me yet the same way I'm looking at them. They'll come around, I'm sure, but I gotta debut the 66 vet I've been working on for the last 5 years before anybody's probably going to jump on that train. But to get going, generally they'll reach out to you when it's time, because companies want all different levels of this marketing, from 5,000 followers up to 150 followers to 500,000 followers. Mm-hmm. There's different levels of this marketing. So, you might get as you go up the hill, you might get a percentage off, you might get free product, you might get free product and a check. You just got to work your way towards that. Right. But I'm kind of a promoter of, when you're starting out, shameless self-promotion. Nobody's going to see nobody's trying to push your stuff. So you just got to you got to get it out there. Like working up to SEMA 2018, when I hadn't debuted any major cars or, had the marketing power of SEMA behind me, or, I'm just a guy in a garage, moonlighting a hot rod business, building a Datsun. It's shameless self. I'm the only guy promoting myself. So you really got to promote the hell out of yourself. And that's how you get, eyes on you. That's how you go to SEMA and win Battle of the Builders, Young Guns stuff, and get in the magazines and all that stuff. Is like, you can't sit in a corner and expect people to just come to you. You got to go to them until they start coming to you.
Yeah, it's a grind.
You got to give them a reason.
You have to understand that there's a lot of hard work. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to continue to keep at it and have faith in yourself that something will happen eventually. You just have to work it, right? And in this day and age, a lot of people want success overnight, and that's just not reality, right?
Yeah, it all goes back to that. What's your motivation? And if your motivation's anything but doing it for the reasons that you like to do it, you're not going to succeed. If your motivation is, I want to try to make money and have a bunch of followers and be an influencer, you're not going to succeed, because nobody wants to follow that. Well, what's in that for people? Like things that really catch people's attention on social media, give them education, and give them eye candy. So I try to do a bit of both. It's like, here's the back of this dart with push rod suspension, but also here's how I designed that from start to finish. Right. That's the stuff that really takes off.
One of the things that people will see too, what I heard was loyalty to your sponsors and values, right? And people will see that in you, and other sponsors will see that in you too, and go, I like how he thinks. I like what he's doing. I like how he supports his sponsors and things like that. So, and when the time's right, people will come your way, right? They'll reach out and say, hey, we like what you're doing,
Nothing does worse for a brand. And you see this all the time in the large followership folks, is when that deal expires, when you switch to a different brand. I love this oil. They're not paying me anymore, so now I love this oil. It's like, well, you just lost 100% credibility that you're not just doing it for the money, and that means I don't trust that their product's truly premiums.
Right.
So I think you can't be greedy. You see this you see it all the time. I'd rather invest my time in loyal folks who are not going to jump ship for a couple extra bucks here and there, because that's going to expire. I like steady. I like my core partners. I like people I have a relationship with. I like people we don't have to have a contract that stipulates 3 posts and 2 stories by X date. I like them to let me do what I do,
Yeah.
and do it organically, and it works out better for everybody. And then again, it's just, what kind of people do you want to work with? I want to work with people that support me. Brands want to work with people who stay true to that brand. So
Yeah,
it's pretty simple. It's just like any relationship in life. It's real simple. So.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up with the brand loyalty, right? Like we see this a lot in racing, because every racer that's out there is watching to see, like, what's the latest combination doing, who's going faster, who's setting records, right? So you've got people that are switching from no longer being, loyal to Pro Charger to go into a C rotor to, I'm going to go back to turbos or whatever. And you see this like consistent changeover. And so those manufacturers are like, I'm not going to do any kickdowns for you, because you're going to change your combination either this next race or this next season. And you may come back to me or you may not, and equally we see the same thing with regards to motors. You've got those guys who are like diehard pro lines. You've got the guys who are diehard AJs. You've got guys who are just like, oh, I'm a Noonan person all the way. And sometimes they, stick true to those motors, but they don't necessarily stick true to what the power adder is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
in racing, it's a tough dynamic, because you have to, if you're not winning, then you lose a little bit of that pizzazz that's keeping the racing program going, that's keeping the people coming back and supporting. So, you got to be, I'm glad that I'm not necessarily doing partnerships in that segment. And I understand the need there to kind of, what's the latest, greatest tech. And I guess another important component I forgot that you just reminded me of is obviously that the stuff, the parts that you're promoting need to be up to your standards. So
sure,
if you feel like they're no longer producing something that's relevant or competitive with what you want to be using, then that might be the time to exit. But at the same time, always give them the first right of refusal. That's your people. So haven't had to do it yet. I've got great core partners.
And you talk about partners and them working with you and not being, look, you have to do this many posts, this many reels, things like that. With our podcast with Redline, I asked them all sorts of questions. I said, just do your thing. They said, Mark said, do your thing. And AMD with Motorhead Digital,
you always get
AMD
more out of
said
that.
the same thing, right? They just like, do your thing. We love you. Just go, so that's cool. It takes the pressure off too.
You can always tell when somebody is being forced to push this brand in this way. And the only thing that does is makes people repulse. Nothing makes people repulse quicker than that kind of a format.
Right.
I like to do it organically. There might be times where I don't even mention it. It's just in the background, or it's just part of the thing. And that's all you need. It's like there's a certain amount of savvy there where you kind of know how to do this without pushing it. So you want to let people go look, see, grasp that that's what you're doing, and the stuff that you're actually doing is so interesting or cool that they're gonna latch on to that you use that in this process. Versus here's my unboxing of the product. I couldn't be less interested in watching you unbox a product. I think that product boxing is the biggest waste of money in the world. Why do I want a sexy box? I want a sexy part. Like, the box is going in the trash regardless.
100%.
I will say that Sen does have some great wrapping, but that's it.
I couldn't agree more.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Annette Bauer Creative. At Annette Bauer Creative, we understand the power of visual storytelling in transforming brands and driving growth. From capturing the essence of your products and services to showcasing the unique solutions you offer, our professional imagery and reels help bring your brand to life. Fuel your brand and ignite your vision at AnnetteBauerCreative.com.
So you mentioned Battle of the Builders and Young Guns, and we kind of went right by that. But that's a big deal, winning Young Guns, right? And I'm sure that affected your business.
It was a huge deal for me. It was personal gratification that I had done the right thing, spending the last 5 years of my life basically giving up 100% of my labor to build that car. That's another thing that you hear lots of people talk about as they're getting going, and it's 100,000% the truth. You're going to sell the farm on several cars before you actually get to make money on one. If you want to progress at a rapid rate, if you want to go to SEMA Battle of Builders and bring something worthy that might actually get attention, nobody's going to turn those keys over right away, because you're talking in the $500,000 to $1 million to $3 million range in the hot rod category.
Right.
So if you want to build something of that caliber and you're starting out like I have been, you're going to give up a shitload of labor. That's 100% what it is. That's just the truth. Because you need a calling card. You need to, this industry is built 100% on trust, and to earn that trust, you need to demonstrate that you're capable.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to hand an untested hand, a blank check and say, build me a super badass car. And I trust what you're going to do is going to be good. It's not going to happen. So you got to show them that you're capable, that your work quality is at a standard that's high. And then that also you're going to be responsible and deliver. So I've never built even half tilt on a build, and people might think that's crazy, but that's equity. That's because I want to build the cars the way I want to build them in the future and get the paycheck for it. To do that, you really got to give up a lot of hours demonstrating what you can do. And I've been graced with great clients who let me do that. Obviously they get a lot of car per dollar. And they still, it's still not, we're not talking small money. It's still quite a lot, but I'm not taking home a lot of that. I'm leaving a lot of that in the car so that it can go to the big shows and garnish the attention. And then every time we level up a little bit. So, and I'm always looking to build every car better than the last one. And naturally that happens because you learn by the time you're done with a big multi-year huge build, you want to start over because you've learned so much since the get-go. It's like, well, this doesn't even represent me anymore because by building it, I've learned so much stuff. But to get back to the SEMA thing, yeah, that was pretty huge. It got, I've been on the cover of SEMA magazine with my face in my car. That was pretty cool. And it was even cooler because the first guy that told me about it was Craig Morrison before he passed. I woke up to a, hey, congrats text. And it's a picture of me, being excited when I won. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is for real. That was super cool. And then it was on, a couple more covers, and you're just, I don't know. I'm a magazine guy. So nothing's cooler than your car on the cover of a magazine. Still to me, even when print's dying. Awesome. I've been chasing hot rod for a decade here, and hopefully before things, totally go internet, I'll get a chance. So, knock on wood that this Corvette I'm building is worthy. We'll see. But it's been pretty wild to get all that attention and humbling. And I think that the best lesson I learned through all of it, and this goes back to being your genuine self, is I needed a little bit of humble pie after all that, because you get everybody and their dog giving you all this good stuff after you do something like that and win the Gran Turismo Award and Syracuse National Showstopper, multi-magazine covers, top young gun. It's like, you really think you're the shit. And then you got to take, for about a year, and then you got to take a step back and go, I'm really not. There is so much I need to learn. There is so many better individuals out there than me. And then you got to just broaden your world a little bit. And then you can really fall into your pocket of being, knowing that you have some talent, that everybody that's talented knows they have some talent. But at the same time, knowing that there is always so much to learn and there is always somebody better, and that you just need to be grateful for any opportunity that comes your way, instead of, walking around thinking you're the shit and, never accomplishing another thing. So I kind of, rode the wave for a couple months and then went, I don't want to be that young gun who won Young Guns and then we never see him again.
Right.
So I immediately poured all that passion into that 64 Corvette I was building to make sure it was at SEMA in 2019, and proving that I want some staying power. I'm here to stay. I want to be part of this industry. I don't want to be a young gun. I want to be a builder. So I worked hard to kind of push that off as quickly as possible and get into building real hot rods. And then I've just continued to progress. But after years and years of wanting that attention and then finally getting it, that'll go to your head real quick if you don't, check yourself a little bit.
I'm sure it can, right? I can't wait to see two things. The blue Corvette you've been working on, because I remember when you started on that, I think it's evolved to way bigger than you originally had thought. Seeing that car at SEMA and in Wheel Hub magazine. I love Wheel Hub magazine. It's like the premium magazine.
So, I just renewed my subscription.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a great magazine and can't wait to. I'm so looking forward to seeing the blue Corvette since I'm a Corvette guy, right? But just watching everything you're doing.
Who happens to have a blue Corvette?
Yeah.
I hope that they take notice, because that's definitely one that you're always chasing something, and I've been tagging them for years. Yeah, I always feel weird because I kind of know how these magazine deals go in the background, but I also kind of think it's only proper if they come to you.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm supposed to be like, pick me, or just play it cool and hold back and build a seriously badass car and hope that, it garnishes all the right attention. So I figure if it has enough presence, they will come. So we'll just see. Obviously that's a dream. And obviously I would, I just don't even want to jinx it, Barry.
Okay. But I'll ask you this, and you don't have to answer.
It all falls back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little superstitions there, or what?
A little bit. Yeah. It's
how far out are you on that?
It all falls back to, it's almost wrapped up at interior. There's a little transmission snafu. I'm going to change out the transmission on it. We went too cutting edge and it bit us. I think it could have worked. We just didn't have we got tied up in this transmission control system for the DCTs that frankly it's garbage. And it was not sold to us as that. I have driven the car.
Oh, really? It's that far away?
I knew the transmission wasn't. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been holding off on photos. I have photos of this car done. I have been holding back from all of you because some of these, I don't know where we're going to debut it yet. And some of them have stipulations on showing the finished car. So I didn't want to step on my foot just in case. I'm not like that. I don't think there should be, that's an antiquated kind of a thing in my eyes with the way social media is and the way that young businesses need to market themselves. You can't just hide that stuff forever until you go to the show, but I understand that's what they want. Because I want to show people this car, because all together, oh my God, I did get out of control. It's everything I could hope for and more.
That's awesome.
It's in Pennsylvania. It's been at Buck's Customs for a while, having the interior done, and Chris and the team are absolutely killing it. I wish I could share more about what I'm seeing there. So it'll wrap up here sometime in March. Come home. Got to put a transmission. I went with the 8 HP and turbo Lamech control. I need to also to do this to get all the right CAN communication, change the engine ECU. So there's a little bit of that stuff, just because I knew that the second I drove with that DCT, that wasn't going to be what my client wanted. And the big thing to remember in this sweat equity game of building cars better than you're paid to build them is that you can't lose sight of what your customer is going to use that car for. So you build the baddest ass car you can in a way that still respects what your client's there for. I'm not going to build a show car for a guy that wants to drive it. And I'm not going to build a driver car for a guy that wants a show car. you just got to kind of mix and match, and all I ever want to build is a race car anyways. So I always have to pull back my own reins and be like, no, only you want a sequential transmission for the street. They don't want that. Cause we're different breeds. I want to hear all the gear noise, but they might want a stereo.
Right.
So it's a fickle fine line. But yeah, that car, I'm hoping to have back to my client. He's SoCal based. So it'd be a nice home base for the car. And he's a really gracious guy, wants me to have my best foot forward.
Nice.
And obviously, the more eyes I can get on his investment, the better for him if, it's an asset. So
100%.
It only gains value, but I'll tell you right now, those, almost $1 million Corvettes at Barrett don't even hold a candle to what that thing is, because it is absolutely phenomenal in function, form, and detail. It's a high level car, and I'm super excited to show the world. So it's got a lot of really cool inventions on it.
Now.
Yeah. So it's worth the hype. That's for sure. So
you talk about the detail and form and function. I want to know how many hours you have in just the gas door. I watched you build that and everything. It's just like, oh my God.
I could tell you how many I build for, but it's not even close. Yeah, that would definitely be one of the 4 most expensive gas doors out there if it was something that I didn't just it's really been an awesome relationship with this client, because he doesn't have anything where he's like, it has to be this. Whereas on the beige Corvette, there were a few taste choices that I didn't have control over. They ended up actually being some of my favorite parts of the car, because it gives it its own personality instead of, trying to be like every other vet out there. But there were a few things that I was like, I might have done that a little different if I could have picked.
Right.
On this one, we've done everything I wanted. The only things that I didn't want to do are like stereo and things that just I personally feel don't belong in a mid-year Corvette that sounds that good. Because you got 2 pounds of space, and we got 57 pounds of shit that you got to cram into this thing. And simple is always good for something that's going to have function. The simpler it can be, the better. And when down the road, when I hopefully do another something big, you learn a little bit every time, and I might speak up a little bit more on some things and be like, I know you want that. That's impossible.
Right.
It's on new cars because they have millions and millions and billions of dollars of R&D money to make it happen.
Right.
We have one car. I'm one guy. No, you've seen shops say they're doing it. I'm telling you right now, it's not functioning. It's just not the way it is. So the only thing I would do different is simplify a few aspects, just because it would make it a more, just knowing what I know, just a better car.
Yeah.
As far as like, will this car be valid and functioning and operable in 20 years? That's what I think of is anything I'm going to do going to either go out of date quick or going to give us trouble down the road, as far as, hey, my car won't start or this system's not working. Because I don't want any of that. I really take pride in when I'm done, the car is done, and it's going to be as cool and as functional in 20 years.
Yeah.
So I work hard at that. But it's really cool that he's had these ideas. Like, one of his ideas was, hey, this C2 Vet has such a sexy body line down the center, and they throw this dick on a duck, Le Mans fuel cap. And I get the Le Mans allure or whatever, but we're not racing Le Mans, and it just freaking ruins that body line. So we're like, where else can we put this thing?
Right.
Obviously your first thought is behind the license plate, but the way that I do the way the tank is on a C2 Vet, gravity doesn't work behind the license plate. So it's got to be somewhere on that top deck. Right. That's the only place you can have a fuel fill on that car where gravity will actually feed that tank. And so I was just thinking, like, where do we hide? And then I was just looking, and I was like, it's not the 90s. It's cooler to have some character and not smooth over every single emblem on a car.
Yeah.
we clean up everything, door handles, mirrors, emblems, those aren't factory. Those are all from scratch, one-offs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what if this emblem just had like a little perimeter, so you're going to see the emblem first. So it's not going to catch your eye. But what if it had a body line around it?
Mm-hmm.
I could live with that. And he just said, yeah, run with it.
Nice.
And so then I proceeded to spend like a couple months figuring out how to get this hinge. It's all custom. It's nothing's off the shelf. It's 100% designed in CAD, 3D printed, prototyped until it worked exactly like I wanted. And then we made it out of billet. But, the actions like a new car, it uses new car mechanisms, push down, pops up, does this.
Yeah.
There's safeties so it can't hit it's very, very thought out. There's drains. I mean,
wow.
It would have been like a $15,000 fuel fill. I mean, if I was billing per hour, like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, man,
but that's not even the most exotic. I have these weird things that I like to do, and I just really, for whatever reason, I'm always messing with fuel fills. So that's not even the most exotic one. That the mechanical mechanism on that 55 Chevy I'm doing is by far the most intricate. The Corvette would be the second most expensive fuel fill I've ever seen, because the banana boat, that thing is mechanical art. Like the way that all works and does it the same every time and has nothing turns me off more than the electric actuators doing anything on a car. You see Bear Jackson and they're lifting the hood on something and it's like, in 5 minutes, the hood's going to be tilted. How cool. It's so stupid. Like, why? What the hell? That is the cheesiest thing I've ever seen. So I'm big on mechanical stuff. So I spend hours and hours looking at hinges. I could just look at hinges on cars all day. How this different gas door, how this hinge, is just a little different. So it just clears like this convex body line. And down in like the actual, I still ended up messing with the license plate on the Vet where it has that charging station behind it. Those hinges are 100% from scratch. I built those because nobody makes a sexy, very micro hinge that does a specific, so I had to do it myself, and I actually turned it into like a turnkey product. I could sell a bunch of those hinges if I really wanted to do that, but I don't. Cool. So
today's podcast is sponsored by Motorhead Digital. Motorhead Digital are digital marketing experts for your automotive aftermarket, restoration, performance, race, and restyling shop. They help you supercharge your shop's website, social media, and entire online presence to attract those badass customers you're looking for. Check us out at motorheaddigital.com.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I've got some pretty cool hinge things.
So, Annette, I bet you didn't wake up this morning going, we're going to talk about gas filler doors and hinges today.
Hey, I knew that when we got on the call with
I wake up every morning ready to talk about them, Barry.
That we were going to learn all kinds of different cool stuff because neither of us are in the fabrication shop. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of Kyle's, and I get to watch some of the really cool stuff that he builds and does quite frequently. And it's definitely one of those things that every time I come across something on your feed, I'm like, oh, what is he doing today? That's
same here. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kyle,
you never know, too. It might be something totally unrelated.
Right? We've had an incredible time with you this morning, and we've learned so much about your passion and how you do it and what drives you. And I love that you're staying so authentic to who you are and the brand that you're building and really staying true to that creative essence of what your clients are coming to you for. So we kind of wrap up our podcast with some very unusual questions. We call this the speed round. And so the first thing that comes to your mind is what I want your response to be. So don't think too much on it. And the last question stumps everybody, so don't feel like you're left alone. So the first question is, what is your favorite driver, team, hot rod, or muscle car?
Hot rod, Roadsters. I was the most inspired, I think, by when the Roadster shop built that Rampage Camaro. First off, I'm a second gen F body Camaro guy. That's my dad had one growing up. We have one we were working on when they came out with that I actually had to shelf because I'm just like, they dropped the mic with that thing. I couldn't even come close. It was just so perfect for everything I love. Race cars, second gen F body, seriously badass. And I was just so inspired by that particular car. Nice. There's a million that I've looked at, especially as like being a judge of Battle of the Builders, where I really get to get up close on some of the best stuff ever, when I was doing that. I've seen some really cool stuff, but that just like speed round Rampage Camaro.
So Kyle, I want to add
just
this
checked
to
all
that.
my boxes.
That's cool. It's interesting you say that because when I grew up, my first car was a 63 Rambler Ambassador station wagon, but my dad had a Javelin. And so the Prestone Javelin that Ring Brothers made is for my car. That's the car.
That was pretty cool.
That's an amazing car.
Yeah. Obviously, anything Mike and Jim's shop has touched is pretty top shelf stuff. It's
for
good
real
stuff.
For real. All right. So second question is, what is your favorite tool in your toolbox?
Nowadays, it's SolidWorks. The pen's mightier than the sword, I think. I can do stuff with CAD and SendCut Send that I couldn't dream. I could spend a whole week. I design stuff every single day. I design a product. Seriously, every single day I design a product. I only release a few of them, but it goes into the catalog. It's
that's so cool.
Years ago, I thought, I grew up computer illiterate. We didn't have a lot of computer stuff. I started out in mechanical engineering in school and immediately went, I don't want to sit behind a computer my whole life. And now that it's come full circle, 15 years later, I really wish I learned CAD back then. So it's just, you can design it enables you to do a much better design job. Being able to check tolerances and see things, or all these cool hinges that are coming together as a result of SolidWorks and 3D print prototypes.
Right. And being able to see it multidimensionally, right? Like instead of it just being like, I drew something on a piece of paper.
I know it's going to work how I want before I even. It's wild.
100%. I think that's really cool. And I've definitely seen some really amazing things come out of it. So I can see how that would be one of your favorites for sure. All right. So next question is, do you have a favorite racetrack, event, or car show?
SEMA. I love SEMA. It was the first big one. It's still the big one. I love going there. I love interacting with all my buddies that I only see at SEMA usually. It's where all the top minds in the craft kind of converge, and you get to see their best foot forward every year. It sure is a lot of fun. So I hate that it's in Vegas. It's the only place big enough to house it, but I'm not into the Vegas stuff. I go for SEMA. Like I show up to the show 2 hours early every day. I try to leave 2 hours late. It's just awesome.
That's awesome. So like leading off of your like going to SEMA, right? Barry and I have both been to SEMA multiple times. Have you ever been, or do you have any interest in going to PRI?
I have a ton of interest because it seems like every year I see PRI and I'm like, it's like they took the best part of SEMA and condensed it into a space you could probably travel in a day. And it's just, the race car stuff is always 2 days.
PRI
okay.
It's equally as big as SEMA is, without like the huge car show element of it, but it is 100% performance based, right? So you come across all of the biggest manufacturers and teams and whatever that are, all there from the racing industry. So pound for pound, each show in themselves are very spectacular.
Yeah. Someday I'll hit PRI for sure.
I highly encourage it. All right. And so then our last question, again, this is the one that stumps everybody, is what is the best advice you've ever received and from whom?
Oh, that does stump you, doesn't it? I can't recall the exact piece of advice, but I'm sure it came from my dad. Just work hard for the stuff you want. It's pretty simple. I don't have a direct quote. You stumped me. Work hard.
Okay. Like not everybody has
that's the Chris
like
Kuhnhausen motto. That'll solve all your problems every time. Just work hard. So
there you go. That's not a bad place to be. Trust me.
No.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for participating in our speed round. Like I said, that last question stumps everybody, so you are not alone.
I'm sure. I should have prepared better.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So we don't give these questions out in advance on purpose.
That's right.
So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks, Kyle, for joining us today. Kyle, how can people find you online, reach out, ask you questions, learn more about your amazing builds and things you're doing?
Social media is big. So I try to keep the same handle on all the platforms. It's KC Kuhnhausen, Kuhnhausen. Hopefully you just get to the KUH and you're good.
Right.
And, I got that's my personal cell phone on there on the Instagram page. You can call me anytime.
Oh, careful now.
I might field. I might not answer, but I'll call you back. But,
You're a very brave man.
I like to be pretty reachable. I hear all the time from people like, I can't believe you took my call. And I'm like, why not? I'm running a business.
Right.
I need your calls.
Right.
I need people I need clients. So, always looking for good folks that want to, share the mind space and create something cool. So,
cool.
Check me out there. I just went through my website, kmcspeedshop.com.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of cool laser cut parts and tools and updated build galleries. And I also throw all the podcasts there on the info section.
I saw that.
People
Nice.
can just, you can find a lot of them. So
that's very cool. That's awesome. Well, we super appreciate you joining the show, and I'm very excited for our guests to be able to hear how you impact the industry and how you do all the great things that you do. So from us here at Gearheads and Gasoline, thank you so much for joining while we're fueling your success. We know you don't want to miss an episode, so don't forget to smash that bell so that you get notified of every new episode. Click that like button, leave us a comment, and share with your people. And visit us repeatedly. We love it.